Yo, B, let's go.
You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth, yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
Welcome back to another episode of Rebel Wisdom. I'm Julian here with my co-host B. And today we're going to be talking about a fairly taboo topic. So not only finances, but what makes it more taboo is finances within marriage. I think this one will be interesting, if not even funny, because only one of us are married, that being B. I myself am not yet at least. But so we're going to be able to kind of attack this from some different angles, such as like me, I have a serious girlfriend, and we do have financial discussions, but I imagine they look a little bit different than those who've already crossed the threshold of financial planning, going into marriage, and within marriage. So I think B can provide some like really good perspective in this conversation. I'm kind of interested to hear some of the things like you and your wife have done, maybe tried, didn't work, some of the things you did, going into marriage. And within this conversation, we'll talk a lot of just knowing us, probably like mentality and philosophy around it too. Not just like, again, I'm no financial expert, so this is not me trying to be like, you should do this and that. Especially this episode, I'm not married. So again, kind of looking forward to the conversation and where it takes us. With that, I kind of want to kick it to you early in this one just to see the early stages of your dual financial journey. Kind of how did you get that initiated? Because, and I'll even say, like, for me right now, usually within my relationship, I'm the one to bring up the financial topics and stuff, but I am glad that it's never really combative or contentious. It's usually it's well received, and it is usually pretty productive. And again, we're not like none of our stuff's combined. She's just my girlfriend, but that gives me hope for when we get there. It'll be smooth sailing. It'll be easy transition. And then, I mean, before we get too deep into it, I've heard that financial intimacy is a thing too, which being financially on the same page or financially compatible could add to other elements of the relationship, which I think is interesting. And I feel like those that aren't married, you really can't feel that. Like, I've heard it, but I can't say I agree or disagree. I personally just haven't felt like that financial intimacy, but I'm super interested to hear your perspective on that topic. So wherever you want to take what I just said, kind of kick it off on your end, but I'd love to hear from you on that.
I'm just repeating back for me to just lay out the tracks, I guess. But you said, how did we start conversations about just finance in general in our relationship and talking more about the financial intimacy, or just like alignment on views of money? Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And or do you think it's your alignment? I don't want to throw too much out just yet, but do you think it's the alignment on money, or do you think it's the overall goals and values that the alignment in money is like a trickle down to that, which I also think might be a common misconception. But again, I'm not there yet.
Okay, that makes sense. I will go ahead and say yes, it is overall just alignment on goals and values and just views in general. Okay. But I do want to say the finance topic is like, it's one of the bigger ones that you can just put its own category into it, I think. But just going back to how our first, how we started talking about money, and this kind of goes back into like me as a person as well. But, you heard this story multiple times, right? Like, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad at 22. And I really, from that day, I was like, I really want to pursue this journey into like financial freedom. Initially my goal was to retire as early as possible, but since maybe probably a couple years ago, I was like, no, I'm probably never retiring in a traditional sense, like where you're not working on projects or work, or instead you just sit at home. I don't think I'm just that kind of guy. But basically, as I'm going through the money journey, like, I discovered pretty quick that I had no one to talk to within my immediate family. I'm talking parents, grandparents on both sides, just uncle, aunt, cousin. I had no one that was like savvy with money. And it was like really frustrating because, I learned a lot from these YouTubers, a lot from books, a lot from browsing Reddit, but it's not tailored to you. Nothing's tailored to you. So
Sure.
it's like nice to have someone to talk to about like, hey, I know traditionally they say this about personal finance, but here's my little nuance I have with my situation, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
So from after reading it, maybe like a year or two later, I was like, you know what? Like, regardless of what people say about money, people talking like about money in like a negative sense, right? I was like, I don't really care. I want to be that guy for my future family tree or whatever, that my
Yeah.
kids, my I don't know, cousins and my niece and whatever, they can come to me for whatever personal finance questions, investment questions they have. And
I love that.
me, I don't I think people can comment and give you recommendations, but I think the value of your words are so much more if you yourself have gone through the journey and achieved it. Even if we say the same thing, it will be different if, let's say I were to amass a net worth of 50 million by 50. Like a very noble goal by any standard of money, right? But
Right.
we could say the same thing from a guy that's unemployed, doesn't really do anything in life, but he's like, "Oh yeah, I just know, it's like it. Yeah, you're gonna have doubts. It's like, hey, why didn't you do it then? So with that, I try to carry myself around the workplace, and me and Julian were in the Navy together on the same ship. So I'm sure you can vouch for me. I try to be that personal finance guy. Then, I don't know everything, but at least share my perspective, knowledge from my point of view. And in many cases, a lot of people don't know. I don't say anything about money, but they don't know the strategies on step by step to how to go from income to investments in a reliable manner, not gambling, right? So
Mhm.
I used to work with my wife in the Navy, and I, as I carried myself, around the personal finance investing guy around like on the ship, like I would recommend them, like, hey, like here's your 401k funds. Like, what are you looking into? Like, you should be putting in this fund based on past historical performance. What you have is bad because X, Y, Z, whatever it is, right? So we already, before we started dating, we did have a sort of connection on the financial piece.
Mhm.
And as I'm learning about her finances, like literally, this is like before dating, I already knew that she was a big saver, which is
Okay.
honestly like a really good first step to start. Because otherwise, the opposite would be big spender. Like I don't think
Hey,
there's
big spender.
a good thing in being a big spender at all when you haven't made it yet, let's just say.
Yeah.
So time goes on, we start dating, and then like at that point, I'm not gonna lie to you, like from the point that we started dating to no, like before we started dating to after we started dating, like the conversation about money didn't really change because we already had a
Okay.
fundamental structure set about my views of money, her views of money, and then what we talked about already
Mm.
over the course of months, right?
That's
And
pretty good. Also, B, real quick, give me an
yeah,
age. Like, what age were you around? Like when y'all just started dating? Because I'm just curious how that plays into just the timeline of things. Usually, when you live longer, you experience more things. Like you kind of understand money better. So I'm just curious
okay. So I got
how
married.
old you were.
3 years ago, which would put me at 26. I got married at 26. We dated for 2 years, so I started dating her at
Okay.
24. So we were talking about
Pretty
this
legit. I
stuff
feel
at
like.
24, 23-ish when I was
Yeah.
in there. She's 3 years younger
Yeah.
than me, so she would have been 21 when we started having this conversation. I would say
Dude, that's good.
earlier than usual, I would think.
Yes. Yes, and I just wanted to paint that picture. Okay, I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
And I do remember before we got married, she was moving to Oklahoma, and this was like post COVID, like maybe, we're still in COVID, like March of 2020 already happened, is what I meant to say. But she was going to a new duty station, and I was telling her, I was like, hey, rates are crazy, crazy low. Like, this is like not a regular thing. You should buy a house. And it's kind of crazy telling someone that she would have still been 21 at this point, and to tell her like, hey, go buy a house. And thankfully
It's insane.
she listened, because there was a lot of pushback from her family. Her family, like, I guarantee, they didn't mean any harm. They meant to give her solid advice, but they were like, hey, it's so uncertain right now. Do not buy a house. Like, do not buy a house. Do not buy a house. It's a terrible time to buy. But I mean, they could have been right, but in reality, what turned out to be true was, it was one of the best times to buy in history for real estate. So she had the trust in me enough to not listen to her family. I don't say not listen to her family, but value my advice about money over her family.
Yeah.
That was right. So that was like
That's a
the
lot of trust.
financial relationship that we had. And
Okay,
I want to say, she's she was my second like girlfriend as I became an adult, like as I'm making money, right? So
yeah.
I don't have too many data points on like relationships and talking about money, but from what I hear is like that's like a taboo topic and people don't talk about it often. But it's kind of crazy because like to be married, like I think religion, money, how many kids you want, like in your politics, like those are the big things that I would think that people need to align on before get married. But one of the topics is taboo to talk about and like not talked about often. Like what kind of crazy stuff is that? Like that should be, like month one conversation from when you're dating. Like, hey, like what is your views about money? How much debt do you have? It's part of knowing someone, I feel like, because ultimately, if the goal of dating is to get married, you are going to be taking on her debt.
Yes.
Or vice versa. I will be, she'll also be taking assumption of my debt as well. So it's crazy to me that couples don't talk about it often, or that's the illusion of it at least. So I hope to change. I mean, I hope, at least one person listens to this and in the future or currently they say, hey, let's talk about money with their significant other, spouse, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever.
Dude, thank you for laying that out. And I think it's kind of cool, like you telling her, hey, this is a great time to buy a house. Not like go buy a house, but like kind of nudging, like you might want to think about it. And now, fast forward, you guys are married and stuff. Has her family ever like came to you and been like, damn, like, dude, you were right, or just I don't know, said anything? Because that's a crazy, like you said. First off, the trust she had in you, which is underlying, like you said, you guys not only like normal trust in relationship, but I feel like had that financial trust and just relationship that is again very rare. And at that age, dude, now I'm thinking about it, you guys had a very unique setup, which knowing you like you guys a little bit more personally makes sense how you guys are doing well, not necessarily making a lot of money, but like just money moves. Like I feel like you guys can navigate money opportunities and whatever like pretty quickly. Like you don't have to dwell on it, or like it's not a sense of like, oh, we're not looking forward to this conversation. Like you guys, I know you guys like did the Instacart or whatever thing at one point. Like, so you're a really good example for this topic actually of early financial foundation, which again is rare, or both early in your relationship and early as individuals, like early in life. So, dang, dude, you guys got a unique setup. That's awesome. But yeah, like to my question, has any of her family ever like said anything, or
No,
not that they have to? I'm just kind of
not
curious,
that
being nosy.
they
Really.
said that I'm right or wrong about that situation, because like I don't
Yeah.
even know if she was telling them that I was telling them her to buy. But
True. Okay.
But
They're
I
probably
will
happy she
tell
hasn't.
you right now, pretty much all of her family comes to me for investment advice at this point. And then it's hard for me to, it's the same thing, I would tell you certain things differently because I know who you are and you understand if I say something, you're not gonna go sell everything, take personal debt just to invest in it, like go all in. Which
Right.
it's hard for me to
Know your
recommend,
audience.
investment advice depending if I don't know how they're gonna behave. But
Yeah.
so I try to restrain away
Good point.
from crazy things. I would always refer back to the major personal finance, like stuff that you can't really disagree on. Even if you disagree, it's like overall good on both scenarios.
Yeah.
And like 401k is a good one. Like which 401k fund do you want to be in? Like that's a pretty easy thing. But then I do appreciate that that tells me from their family they have trust in me for making financial decision for them.
Yes. Dude, yeah, no, that's pretty cool, dude. I'm trying to analyze, like why don't people have these conversations, right? And it's probably a combination of they're scared to, or honestly, maybe or embarrassed, which could go into the scared factor, like you're scared because like you're embarrassed of your personal situation, or just don't know how to bring it up. So I know when I tried to like bring up the subject in my relationship, I was like, okay, still early on, like me and my girlfriend are still very serious, but like in the somewhat early stages of relationship. And when I first brought it up, I thought in my head, like, all right, how am I going to, like, I don't want to bring it up. We get along with a lot of things, but like, how am I going to do it? And I'm happy the way I did, but I approached it as hey, how much debt do you have? How much do you make? Like, what's your plans to make whatever? It can be, I don't know, harsh, but truly what I was more interested in. I was like, what is your mindset? I think this is how I said it verbatim. What's your mindset around money? And when I asked this, she kind of asked for clarification because I don't think you hear it worded like that often. Like, how do you think about money? So, we kind of peeled it back and then got to the more like philosophical talks around money and what how valuable is it in our life? How can we how can we leverage money for the lives we want? We started there and then eventually got to like, okay, I know you work, like how much do you make and whatever. And I think that's one way, again, I can't offer much in this conversation, but I think that is one decent piece, at least again, something that I've done that worked for me that allowed me to enter that space and kind of open the door of financial discussion, which is the money, I guess, what's your personal money mindset? And to ask that question, I myself had to have my own personal money mindset before I can kind of broach the subject with somebody else. So that was one thing that I was happy how I handled it. And again, talking to people like you said, you don't really have any immediate family you can go to, maybe for money advice, or maybe that even thinks about these things often. So, like for people like you and some other close friends I have, just discussing money helps you kind of develop your own stance, your own money mindset, and then allowed me to take it to her and be like, "Hey, what's yours?" And then if she's like, "Dude, I don't know what you're talking about," or "I haven't thought about this," we can have discussions to kind of develop that and stem from there. So that was an early thing, in this taboo space that I think kind of helped me kind of just get the train on the tracks in a sense and get it rolling.
I think it's really good though, because I feel like I like the way that you phrased it. That is a little bit ambiguous for a lot of people, but that kind of brings about like the curiosity side of it rather than what you say. Like, I would not say, "Hey, what's your salary?" Right? Because like, depending on
Yeah.
how much she makes, like she could be defensive about it, or she can be, I guess, braggadocious about it. Either way, it's not good. But saying, what's your view of money? That's much more,
Mm-hmm.
I guess, applicable and useful in a relationship because your income and
Yeah.
your debt levels will constantly change. You can go up in income, you can go down income, you can have zero income, you can get laid off. You can pay down debt, you can get more debt with stupid choices. But all that doesn't really necessarily matter. It could help, but doesn't really matter as long as the fundamental idea and belief about money and how you get more money is, I guess, there. Some people don't have it, unfortunately.
Dude, you said that so well. Like, same with, I mean, this is less likely, but yeah, like, inheritance, or I mean, this is super extreme, like hit the lotto, but like if you somehow have X amount of money and now you have a lot more, yeah, it's less about what you have and how you deal with it. What are your financial habits? What's your mindset? Yeah, you said that really well. Okay, getting into maybe some of the more tangible aspects of marriage. I'm trying to think of some things that people say are, I'm not gonna say against, but common misconceptions or ideas that don't really exist in marriage. And I'm gonna throw one out first because I think this is like the biggest one in this space, and I want to see your thoughts on this. But people say money problem. Well, actually, I'm not even gonna steer the conversation. I'm just gonna say it. Money problems is the number one cause of divorce. What are your? I'm just gonna leave it open ended. I mean, I have some thoughts on it. Neither of us have been divorced, but what are your thoughts on that statement?
Yeah. I personally like the definition that you throw out around the topic of relationships, and it's not about money, it's the unmet expectations. But
Mm-hmm.
I do like that more because I think that's the true overall umbrella, like the root cause behind all this stuff. But when you go to the second layer and you say, hey, out of all these unmet expectations, which one is the out of the number one lead in terms of divorces, I would say money issues for sure. So I do think that is very true. And
Okay.
I do think that can be mitigated by, I'm not just talking about money once a month, sitting down, not like in a casual sense, like setting up a time. Because, hey, let's go over our
Mm.
expenses this month. Let's go over what we want to do with our savings. And just by talking about that once a month, I feel like a lot of the situations that end up in divorce related to money can be avoided.
And I've heard that a lot, actually. Yeah. The have a system, like it's one thing to talk about it, but an intentional plan, focused discussion. Okay. Yeah. And you already stated my philosophy. Yeah, how it's not. Dude, you said that so perfect. I think it's the um miscommunicated expectations that lead to that, but a subset of that, yes, is talking about money, the expectations within money,
Mhm.
which ultimately, could lead to divorce. So, I feel like being that money can be one of the leading causes, we'll say, which we've already identified as like a subset. I was what? No, it wasn't Dave Ramsey, but somebody was saying how, again, it kind of goes back to communication is, again, is the overarching above the money issue here. The not really the money that leads to divorce, but the lack of communication. And again, kind of the lack of communication about the money, which what you said can directly affect, right? Like sit down, let's have a plan, whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, something, but we need to sit down at some frequency and have a plan. I've heard that from a bunch of, some I follow like couples on Instagram or some finance pages that are couples, and I've literally heard that probably from almost all of them about how important it is to have a structured time. But some of the other nuances within communicating about money, I hear interesting things like and these are my opinions. I'm just gonna throw up some, like, a narrative or some narratives, right? Like the breadwinner should make the financial decisions, or like the breadwinner should be the one to have the last say, or the breadwinner, the person that's bringing in most of the money, should be the person managing the money. All of which, I'm gonna say a common narrative, certainly things I've heard, but all of which I disagree with. And so I want to hear some of your thoughts on that too, like, which completely makes sense, right? Like, person A could be making the most money, but your income does not correlate to your financial literacy or your ability to manage money at all. That is, hey, you got a decent job where you're bringing it in, but the person B, who could be the stay at home, whatever, could actually have better financial habits or more financial literate and be managing that money. But again, from what I've heard, I feel like that's also a misconception. I don't. Have you seen that, or I don't know if you want to give some insight on like your situation or some friends, if you have these conversations with amongst married friends. I'm curious.
I couldn't agree with you more regarding, you said breadwinner should be making an investment decision. Like, that's so stupid because,
So
like you
arbitrary.
said, person that's making more money doesn't necessarily equate to them knowing about personal finance or investments. And that's
Right.
so echoed by you mentioned Dave Ramsey, so it quickly came up to my mind. The largest study done on millionaires was done by Ramsey Solution, Dave Ramsey's company. They interviewed about 10,000 something. It was like less than 11,000, I think, but above 10,000. They interviewed 10,000 millionaires, and this is net worth millionaires, not income millionaires.
Mm,
So with that, they listed out, hey, these are the 5 most common occupation within the millionaire group that 10,000 millionaires that we
that would be.
selected. And
Yep.
the surprising thing is doctor is not on that top 5, which you
Yeah.
immediately think like, hey, doctors, like, they're one of the highest paid occupations. Why aren't so many more people rich? And one is like they have a crazy amount of student debt. That's it. That's not the main point I want to make, though. Is they say doctors are one skill away from being rich. And that's a saying. And then the skill that they're referring to is personal finance or investing, just money related. Because you got to think, once you become a doctor, you're expected to drive a nice car. You're like, you have like a social pressure to buy a nice house.
It's such a good
People
point.
know you as like the breadwinner, not just in the relationship, but they know like you're the guy that makes money
Just in society.
in society,
Yeah.
right? So there's like a weird amount of pressure that comes with that. And
Mm,
out of the top 5 occupations I was talking about, teacher was in the top 5, which is so interesting
mm,
because they are one of the lowest paid occupation as like a
yes.
whole, as like a subset, right? But it's not about how much money you make. The greater delta of your income versus your expenses will help you become a millionaire faster. Yes, but if you don't apply the right systems in place, you might never get there at all.
Yeah.
If you're a doctor that makes 200K a year, but then you spend 200K, vice a teacher that makes 50K that lives on 30, and he can invest 20K a year, dude, he's going to be set. Right. And I think the doctor will be just fine as well. They just need to tweak a little things here and there. But yeah, that is not, I have heard that argument, but I think it's really dumb. That person that makes more should be making a decision. And I do want to add, in the relationship, me personally, I make majority of the financial decisions on where to invest, how much to keep in reserves, and then, how to allocate everything. Because I am interested in stuff and she gives me the trust to go execute on it. But
Yeah.
I want to plug in a very important piece, is that we still sit down and talk about where the money's going. I tell her, I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. What do you think about it? Are you comfortable? Are you nervous? Because you have to be on board together, right? And here's a couple things that could happen if you just let one person manage the finances without the communication. Is usually, not always, right? Not always, but usually the man in the house is the guy that determines the stuff, where the money goes. And that could be problematic because if if the relationship takes a sour turn and it ends up being a divorce, you are literally screwing your wife. Like, not literally, figuratively, uh
But
with money. Because you have done all these things for your family, but then like once you get divorced, like you pretty much leave her with nothing. Yeah, okay, you split the assets, whatever. She gets the other half. But even if that's the case, like, it's not about the money; it's about the systems that make you
it's
successful.
exactly.
So by one person doing it, and some people could say, "Oh, it's after the divorce. I don't really care," but that's kind of selfish. Like, you should.
Yeah, I mean,
You should be aligned so that even if something happens, like, the other person's okay. And the second thing is, just I hope your spouse or significant other cares about this stuff, but even if they don't, just loop them in, because majority of the time there is a underlying feeling regarding money, whether it's positive or negative. And if it's negative, that can, on the surface, they might be like, okay, you worry about it. It's okay. I just want to, whatever. But by doing that, by not incorporating your significant other in the finances that you guys both share, like it creates this like this weird relationship when the money topic comes
Mm.
up. So even if your spouse is like, "Hey, I don't care, you worry about it," I really, really urge you to still keep them looped in or make them participate, because it is a partner thing. It's not just you do everything and the other person, just reaps the rewards. It should be a together thing. That's what makes it fun too.
I'm not gonna lie, I feel like you just dropped some gold right there. You kind of brought in the emotional side, and it's like that buy-in piece, right? I feel like if you're the one solely doing it, and this could lead to the financial intimacy. I'm not sure, but it's both of you are contributing physically, right? Like both of your money is going into the pot, but then if one person's handling it, I just feel like the other person is going to feel, even if they told you like, hey, you handle it. At the end of the day, we're humans. We have emotions. Or if a big decision needs to be made, like you've been handling it, of course, the person that's been handling the money is more aware and apt to say like where it goes or what we do. I feel like that could, maybe not today, maybe not in a year, maybe not in 5 years, but at some point they're going to feel left out, or in the financial space within the relationship, there's going to be that divide, and who knows where that slight divide could lead to, right? That could lead to just unnecessarily hard conversations. That could lead to isolation within the relationship, like I said, them feeling left out. So do I feel like what you just said, I never really heard it articulated like that. But again, like this is stuff like even me, like I'm gonna take on board, because I can see how that could be extremely crucial. Or even let's say the breadwinner is hospitalized for one, can't get at a computer, can't speak,
Yeah.
God forbid, some terrible. What now? The other significant other is just gonna flail if you have kids, like wait till you recover. I could see it being very important, even like you said, even if there's somebody identified that, is the lead in that space, but both people need to be, I think, active in that. Dude, that's so good. Wow. Yeah. And I think so at the very end of that, you said even what makes it fun. And this is what I think is cool, because if you really do have that alignment, and again, not necessarily who's managing the money, but the mindset and your overall what you want to do with your money, I do feel like that could bring you closer in your relationship in spaces outside of the financial space. Like,
Mhm.
I think, like, I could see, and again, this is speculative because I'm not there yet, but and I have heard some people say this, like, there's more fun in the relationship when you're aligned there, or there's more opportunity, both if it's estate planning or for your kids or just quality of life. Uh, I'm assuming you would feel more connected. I just feel like anything else, and this probably goes for many facets of a relationship. But if you're aligned in that space, which we can all acknowledge, finances, intimate, like it's not going anywhere. It's not something you can avoid. It will be there. And kind of like you said, I feel like it's up to the couple to make it a positive thing or a negative thing. And I feel like that could just drive so many other things in a relationship.
Yeah, I do want to say on the emotional piece a little bit. I do want to expand on it. And you mentioned the sharing, being aligned on the goals or something along those lines. That's kind of what reminded
Yeah.
me. But it's very interesting. It sounds obvious, but I do want to say it out loud to just to drive home a point. But like you, for example, right? I don't wake up in the morning and say, "Hey, how can I grow my money for me and Julian?" I'm not gonna lie, that is not the first thing that comes into my head, right? But
You're fake, dude. Hey, it's crazy.
I try to. If we're talking, like, hey, I would. You definitely come to my. If we're talking, I was like, oh, you should do this. But it's something. It's a little bit different with a marriage, and that's so obvious. but
Mm.
I'm trying to explain it, which is the hard part because it's so much emotion driven. But waking up, you know what I mean? Waking up next to the person is not the important part, but just having someone that without a doubt, they are 100% on your team and aligned with your 100, like, without a doubt,
Mhm.
they are aligned with your financial goals because it will also benefit them as well. And having someone that you align goals with to pursue something together day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, it's just rewarding. I don't know what to say. Like outside of the money net worth value, like we do a net worth calculation every month,
Mhm.
right? And you got to keep in mind, like we were doing this like when we're dating. I would update my
That's
own net
so
worth tracker
dope.
and I would make her do her own net worth tracker. So we weren't combining at the time. But it's so like looking back, it's only been 5 years, but I started out with like negative net worth because I came out with like 80K of student loans. So for the longest, it took me a couple of years to go from negative net worth to even positive. And since then, it has, it's much more than the 0 point. But it it is cool to see when we sit down and like we go over it at the end, like, oh hey, here is our net worth, here's what it was last month, and just seeing that trend over time, and then knowing that you did it with your partner and you continue to like work on it. I just think it's like there's so much feeling of accomplishment and satisfaction that it's
Mm.
hard to mimic that feeling outside of the scenario that I don't know, it's like a small example, but on a monthly basis.
Sure. No, what you just said actually lends itself to what I was about to say, which was Dave Ramsey related. And I'm pissed. I can't remember the exact question, but it was like somebody called into him and was like, "Hey, me and my husband are in." Oh my God. It was a woman that called in and she was trying to see, the question was very open ended. It was like, how do people handle finances
Mm.
within marriage? And he takes very like hard stances on things, whether it's debt or in this topic. And he gave his answer, everything about his answer was, you are one. And he just preached that, you know, it's not your money or his money, which something she said later in the question, she was like, yeah, but when I make money, he's like, no, it's not your money. Like, it is your money, like our money. And he was emphasizing the fact that it is joint, whether the accounts are, separate or not. In theory, like, it is our money and everything is joint. And he just drove home the point that if you can shift your mindset to it's our money. What are we gonna do with our money so we can plan our vacation? And he was like, you hear the pronouns I'm using? It's not my account versus your account. And then with Tally, he was like, no, with our money. And he said, use that narrative to drive the shift in how you guys speak about finances. And it was nothing that he said was like earth shattering, but again, it's just kind of makes you think about the planning and how it needs to be kind of a team effort to I feel like to find success in that space. But I do want to play devil's advocate or rebel a little bit, and how I do feel like a strong narrative is once you get married, everything has to be shared and visible to everybody. And again, I'm not there, but I am personally a rebel against that. I don't think everything, when I get married, I do think we'll have a very joint concept, but individual credit accounts for individual spending accounts, I can see that being a thing. And again, as somebody that's there, I want your 2 cents on this. But conceptually, I could see it being very powerful to think about everything as joint, but I don't think everything needs to physically be in the same savings account, same spending account. I think some autonomy could be good. And again, people are different. I think finance, just like health, which we've talked about, is not a one size fits all. Therefore, you can't take one You can't take one structure, one system, and just overlay that on every financial, like dual financial situation and be like, yeah, like this is the best. I think if people can find a working system, like you said, I like the word you said, system, with saying like, hey, this is my spending account, this is my spending. Maybe we don't talk about a purchase unless the purchase exceeds X dollar amount, and then like at the end of every month, we're gonna come together and we're gonna look at our investment account, our saving, however it looks. I think that could work too. But I am a fan of the joint mentality, but not everything necessarily being joint physically. Have you seen, heard, or any statistics that, either are for or against any of those ideologies or anything?
I do. I never thought about it like that, but from what you said, I do like that idea of mentality wise, you are one, but in real life stuff, like literally not everything might be joint, right?
Yeah.
Like I that is a good way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't necessarily rebel Dave Ramsey's point, because I do think that is a good rule to follow. And he says, mentality wise and also account wise, join everything, right? But you gotta agree with that first and know what he's talking about in order to break it, type of thing. Like you gotta know the rule in order to break it. And I agree with you, because it might not be practical to join everything. And that was so my wife and I, we don't have any joint account. But
Okay.
it originally, but don't get me wrong, I'm not against the idea of combining everything, but at this point we have so much like different money moving for real estate stocks, income, like just there's different accounts for everything, so it will be so impractical and annoying to combine everything. That's my first point. So it will be case by case.
Yes.
But I'm not.
That's the personal piece, yeah.
But this is a very important thing that, why it works, in my opinion, by not combining it together into one account. Like I said, we calculate our net worth every single month. We go line by line, say my checking, my saving, her checking, her savings, 401k, her 401k, crypto account, her crypto account. Like invest. We go literally line by line. And if there's something ordinary, like unordinary, like something that was unexpected, we would ask each other, like, oh, hey, like, what happened? And then they'll say, oh, like this happened. Oh, okay, makes sense. And move on. And at the same time, I know her like iPhone password, and she has my iPhone password. So we can go into each other's banking app without, like, we don't have to ask each other to like, hey, can I see your bank? No, I just go and look if I need to. So there's literally nothing to hide. So we do still try to follow that mindset of a joint account, like we are one. But physically speaking, yes, I'm on the same page with you. Like we don't necessarily have everything as one.
Okay. And I love that you can provide that like real time examples. Pivoting, not really from that, kind of elaborating on that, I want to hear some of the actual things that can come from, joining these accounts. We're talking about like you get the obvious thing, right? Like one income, you combine them, you're going to have more. But then you also, on the negative direction, combine debts. It all balances out. But I mean, I certainly look forward to, as somebody, as a individual, I do some of the same practices you and your wife do. I'm just looking at my stuff though. So I get excited when I'm like, oh my God, like I can layer a whole nother income on this, or some more investments on this, or like I also get excited about this stuff, which I'm gonna back up. Dude, I also just want to say I think the reason you are so good for financial discussions or even advice is that, one, there's an enthusiasm piece behind it. Like, it's cool to be able to find it, look it up, stay with it, but like you're genuinely enthusiastic about it. And then two, you are well researched in the things that you personally are involved in. So I don't know. I just think those are two good factors for. It's not necessarily marriage, just the personal finance or whatever, that I think are really cool, and that why I enjoy talking to you. But taking it back to the topic, one thing, like, on that note, I get excited about is, like, man, when I'm finally there and, like, combining everything, and it's almost a game in a sense of seeing how, I don't know, to maybe, like, scale our profits or whatever when everything's combined, like, just how living expenses, right? Like, if we can sometimes my girlfriend will come, like, let's say, stay with me for a weekend, and it's like, our lives don't really change too much, right? So, if you could just take, if our lifestyle only goes up by a little bit, but because we're enjoying all our finances, like, I expect the savings to go way up, investments, and it's truly exciting. And then you think of how you can layer that into buying things like, I don't know, groceries. Maybe you can start buying in bulk now and, like, save some dollars here. Um, groceries or household goods or whatever. I feel like that all plays into part. Now we're getting into the more, tangible things. But I don't know, dude. I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure, just knowing how you think, like, you probably were too. Or I've had other friends speak on how it's like, dude, yeah, this is sick. Just, or you even said on one episode, like, the first time you saw the account when everything was joined, and it's like, dang, like, it kind of makes you feel good. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's, how do it's you're literally financially, it's a whole different, everything, like, elevates essentially.
Yeah. You heard of Dink, right?
Oh yeah, dual income, no kids. Heck
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
When
synced,
you
boy.
unlock Dink status, it's kind of crazy how much your money grows. And I don't want to say
Yeah.
that to disencourage having kids, because we want to have kids. We don't have kids right
No,
now, but
sure.
we do want to have kids, and I would choose having kids over any of the money stuff that I'm talking
Mhm.
about. But
Mm.
until you get the money, until you get to the kid step, but the Dink mode is like crazy. I'm just like, dude, life cannot get any better unless I have kids. Like, that's like literally, I wake up every day. I'm like, dude, this cannot be any better than this. And the only thing that I could see myself improving my life is having kids. But yeah, a lot of people think, and I heard this from not from just online, but like I heard people say this, that like girlfriend or wife, they treat that as a liability in terms of finances, right? They're like, oh, I got to spend money for my kids. Oh, where does your money go? Oh, like my wife takes it. They say it as marriage or relationship does more harm than good in terms, just I'm just talking about money. And it's interesting. I
Mhm.
don't really have a point to this, but I've lived majority of my life in my Japanese culture, but I am well versed in the American culture as well. But in Japanese culture, it's like similar narrative. It's like, oh, like my wife takes the money, blah 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 blah, and I just found that interesting. I don't really have a point to that, because Americans and Japanese, they think so differently in so many topics, especially in money too. But the common narrative and within that is, oh, my wife or girlfriend they take my money. And that's the part I wholeheartedly disagree and rebel against. And what you were saying as well on the daily I don't know, the monthly expenses portion, it's not, you have one and you have your significant other, combine it, that's two, therefore your living expenses goes up by two. That doesn't necessarily work like that, because there's so many
Yeah.
shared expenses that you can combine together. And you were talking about it, right? Like,
Mhm.
maybe you guys both had $1,000 rent on a studio, but when by combining together, you just need to get a 1 bedroom, not 2 bedrooms.
Mhm.
So it's not going to be $2,000. It's more like maybe 1,300, 1,400. Like,
Yeah.
the increases might be like 40%, 50%. And that goes across a lot of different stuff, like groceries too. Like, we buy one onion, right? Like, one onion is actually kind of big. So you can make, like, you can use half to make like 2 meals for each. Whereas, before, maybe by the time you use stuff for food, it was like going bad or something. And then the bulk thing too, you can save on gas on going, going
Yeah,
different
yeah.
places. And investment stuff you can combine as one as well. So, maybe before you were married, you were saving for your own retirement, but at this, like, you can live your own retirement with your spouse. So, like, worst case scenario, I hope you guys, I hope two people still contribute into the retirement account, but like, you don't have to. You can just have one retirement account that's really well funded for you guys to live together in the future with two people, So that's a misconception that I have heard in real life that I just do not agree with. But back to the dink thing.
Yes.
I was talking about it with you before the podcast, but this strategy or tactic or whatever you want to call it, I live it, I stand by it, and I'm such a big advocate for it because it has worked wonders in my life, right? So maybe it's not I don't know, one size fits all approach, but I would think in majority of the relationships it would work. And let me explain what I'm talking about, right? But
yeah, okay.
What I currently do right now, this is my real life, exactly what I do. I get my income from my job. I do not spend it one bit on my living expenses. Both of the paychecks I get in a month, like literally everything goes to savings or investments. And I have my little like side money that I get from other revenue streams to, like, I don't know, live, like, I don't pay any bills. So like, I might, I don't know, whatever the expenses I have, I don't have much, but you spend it out of that. My wife, on the other hand, like she has to pay all the bills. She pays the rent, she pays utilities. We don't have car payments, but she buys the groceries and whatever, right? So we live our day to day on her income. Everything that I get literally goes investments, and if you can structure it like that, I think it's so easy. And I think the question that I naturally got to after that was like, hey, whose income do we use for that spend account and on the investment side? And mathematically speaking, the person with the lower income, their income should be used to live the life so you can live frugally and whatnot, and you can maximize your investments. But I know I talked to you about it before. In the last couple of years, had a really big change of thought. And today, I would say I don't think either person that is chosen on the higher income or lower income to be the spend account versus investment account, I don't think it matters. I mean, as long as like the other one's like not employed, which would imply zero. Like that's not what I'm talking about. Right. But I say I had a change of mind recently because even on the higher paying person, I guess like that would create hopefully that can translate to a more of a lavish lifestyle. And I'm not against that anymore because realistically, like, if you're, I don't know the exact math, but let's say you're making $50K a year and then your spouse is making $80K and you live off the $80K. So you live a pretty good life on a day-to-day basis. And then on the $50K, I don't know, you might get taxed. So your take home income might be $36K a year or something like that, right? Yeah. Therefore, that would imply monthly payments will be $3,000. And if you're using the entirety of the $3,000 for investments, you got to realize not many people are putting in $3,000 into investments every single month. That's a lot of money. And plug that into a compound investment calculator. You put 0, assume a 10% growth rate for the S&P 500. Put in 300, like you have 0 assets. You're starting out fresh. You put in 3,000 a month every month. After 20 years, 30 years, whenever you guys are ready to retire, you will be very much set. So before I was trying to maximize the math and investments and the numbers, but I the bottom line is as long as the income's there on both parties, I don't think as long as the strategy is implemented, I don't think it matters too much on who is the person that's paying for all the bills, who is the person that's investing all of their money for the group, for both of you guys.
That makes sense. Because when you said the lower earner have their check support the living expenses, that kind of made sense when you said it. But I mean, I can hear both that I guess it really wouldn't matter. Yeah, man, I'm just still thinking of like, and you articulated a lot of really good ways. Just literally joining forces can be so good. And I'm trying to think of things like we haven't even touched on, like just overall stability, or I don't know. It's kind of like checks and balances. Like your whole life is just you checking. Now you have an extra set of eyes. Not even talk about tax benefits. I just feel like the list is so extensive. So when I hear narratives like, just speaking financially, getting married, it's harder or worse or a liability to financially to get married. It's like, I don't see it. I don't see it. And I feel like numerically it supports it not being worse. Like I feel like you have to kind of F something up for it to be, and the situations going into a joint situation vary so vastly. But again, just on average, like it's rare that you get together and I feel like, income is comparable, debt's comparable. There's usually one that is on paper doing a little bit better than the other. And even still, I feel like it could be a net positive for both. And I also I genuinely don't understand that narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's something I'm glad we kind of got to, I can't even say dispel, but just talk about why that may not be true. And another controversial topic in this space, I have to bring it up, would be prenups, right? I feel like anybody, just all without fail always comes up. And again, I'm not there. So this is something I've thought a lot about, and to me it's regardless of whether I am going into a situation where I have more money and or assets or my partner does. Just in general, do I agree with the theory, the concept of a prenup or not? And again, it goes back to, so I'll say the common narrative, which is if you get a prenup, you don't trust your partner, or if you get a prenup, you think your marriage is going to fail. What I'll just say off the back, I disagree with. And it did take some like conversation with people and like some talking to get there, but I do strongly disagree with that. So I try to look at it conceptually and ask myself, like, do I agree with a prenup? Now, whether I get one or not, I guess is to be determined. But whether I'm on the higher earner side or not, I think it is valuable. And for me, I'll say why. I think a prenup is just a way for the people entering the marriage or the situation for them to take control of their own financial destiny. Because to my knowledge, if not, if you don't choose a prenup, like there is God forbid, right? Something happens. It's just up to the courts, to the government or whoever to decide who gets what. Whereas if you do have a prenup, again, this stems from a financial discussion and planning. You, as in the people entering the agreement, can kind of decide what's going to happen with your assets and your allocations. And I haven't found one better, but the best thing I've heard about a prenup to date, which I really like this analogy, is, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but it's the seatbelt thing. Have I told you that?
I have heard about it, and that's how I think about it now. Yeah, I heard about you.
Yeah, I was having this conversation with my mom, and because she was against it. I mean, she's like way lived in life. It's not gonna matter to her, but just I like bounce stuff off my mom, and I said this to her, and she was like, "Wow, that's actually a really good way to think about it." And it was that. You ask anybody, would you want a seatbelt in your car? Everybody's going to say yes. And it's like, well, why? A seatbelt is there to protect you in the event that you get in a crash, right? Like you shouldn't if you're not planning on crashing your car, like why would you need a seatbelt? Correct. Nobody drives with the intent to crash. But if you do get in a crash, I guarantee you're gonna want a seatbelt. And when I heard it like that, like you don't anticipate maybe needing to divide the assets or figuring out who's gonna split what due to divorce or whatnot. But if you do, you have had that conversation, you have that safety net. So when I heard that, I was like, yeah, it's one of those things you want, but you want to never have to use. And again, I'm not super well educated on the inner workings of a prenup or prenuptial agreement. There may be more to it, but again, from face value, how most people know it is just like it's a way to protect what's mine and to not let him or her get what's mine. I think again, if we shift the narrative around it, and it's like the mentality going into it, it can also be used as a part of the financial intimacy and having conversations about it and moving forward jointly in that space. I don't think it has to be this negative me versus you, I have more, you have less thing. So again, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I conceptually I do agree with like prenup, like what the purpose is behind. Like it's yeah, like you said, you don't go into a marriage planning to get divorced, but look at the
No.
stats. A lot of people get divorced. And what should you do? Right. And then, yeah, like you said, I think it just misunderstood like what a prenup exactly is. But I think you said it better, but it doesn't mean you just keep this, I just keep this. You can put whatever you want inside the prenup. You can say, hey, I keep this and you keep this, like a regular prenup. But let's say after 20 years of marriage, everything after that, at that point, everything is combined. You can say stuff like that. Like, it can be anything, right? So I honestly think like a traditional sense of prenup, like, hey, you keep this, I keep this, is there's not many situations that you would require that. Where I'm thinking about like if you need it, I'm talking like you have a not like a little side hustle business, but like you have a legitimate business that you need it to succeed in order to live your life, but you have it with a partner. Right? Like the worst situation that could happen right there is you guys get married, no prenup, you guys break up. Now the other person gets to keep the half of the LLC or something. Doesn't make sense. But like for me, and I'm thinking about for your situations, right? You have real estate. And so it kind of depends on how much value you want to put into the real estate. Right? I would I it's your situation, so I don't want to tell you what to do. I'm just thinking out loud. If I was in your situation, sitting back in a gamer
yeah.
chair, what would I be telling you? Right? But I mean, you have real estate, so it could make sense to say, hey, I have this real estate with my family. In case something happens, like it just, like I just wanted to keep passing it on my side of family. But we have kids together in the future. Like I'm definitely down to combine that net worth into our marriage situation. So something happens, you guys can get the half, and then ultimately we can pass it down to our kids or something like that, right? But besides that, if you're a regular W-2 1099 worker and the other one's the regular W-2 1099 with stocks, 401k, I don't even think they need a prenup at that point. But you can structure the prenup in a way that you guys are both comfortable, because it's not
Right.
not all prenups is like that. Like I don't think there's such a bad negative connotation. It's
Yeah.
usually like, oh, the woman's gonna get married to the man and they're gonna get divorced so she can get everything, right? Like the prenups can prevent that from happening in a much more of a mutually beneficial way for both parties.
Yes. And I feel like if you're getting married to somebody and you're worried that may even be a possible mentality, like, oh, dude, they might, I don't think they're doing this, but they might be trying to marry me to give me for everything I got. Forget a prenup, dude. if that's even a thought, you probably shouldn't even be marrying them. So
Yeah,
again,
that is
that's
true.
beyond the prenup. That's not a prenup conversation. That's a
That's
like
a relationship.
you and your relationship conversation. Yeah, like if you're worried about somebody taking you for all you got, that's a whole. It's not the prenup. Again, they're attacking the vehicle, and I feel like it's the mindset that's the issue. Okay, so that was the quick and dirty on the prenup. It always is this long drawn out negative thing. I think it's as simple as that. Do you have any other thoughts on like, or I don't know, traditional? I feel like I don't even know how to articulate it, but traditional roles kind of come into this conversation, which I mean, we might have touched on them indirectly, but like in the finances in a marriage, there's a lot of tradition that comes into play that could be like very controversial.
I have a topic, and then traditions
Okay.
reminded me. So I want to hear your thoughts on it too.
Okay.
So I like to think in today's world, I'm seeing a lot of flashy weddings, right? And I guess this is before marriage, or whenever you hold a ceremony, you could already be married on paper. But
Yeah.
I
Sure.
have heard multiple times over and over again that the bigger and more expensive the wedding is, less likely your marriage will succeed. And I think that's a very interesting data point, because that is a phrase I do see a lot, and I do think there's some truth behind it. And I guess I'm not a living, proof, because I've only been married for 3 years, but like my wife and I, we didn't even have a wedding. We got court, we got our marriage certificate, like we signed at the courthouse. And it was $20 I need to pay for the certificate. And then from there, we had like a little get together, like after party sort of, with her side of family. And then I was in Ohio, where she's from, so I only had like one buddy that came. But yeah, it was like super low key. But I have first-handedly heard of situations where couples are spending 6 figures on a wedding. And I'm just thinking, like, dude, that could be a big chunk of your down payment for the dream house that you get to live in. I'm not a female. I don't understand the dream of the wedding. I just don't understand it, to be honest.
Bro, it's not just females, bro.
Well, I mean, maybe for a guy too, but I usually hear females, they dreamed about it, blah,
No,
blah,
I
blah.
know, man.
But I just do not see that outweighing the benefits of, like, financial benefits of having a home, the memories that you could create if you just spent that on a lap. You could probably spend 1/5 of that on a lavish 2-week vacation. So I
Yes.
don't know your thoughts about your budget for the wedding, but that is something that a lot of people follow the tradition. A lot of people try to one up each other. So what do you think about that?
Bro, I'm laughing because I'm going to use this as a segue to my answer, but there's a show on Netflix called Marriage or Mortgage, right? I watched it a couple times and I wanted to punch my television. I'm going to read you the premise of the show. Mortgage or Marriage, a Netflix reality show where engaged couples have to choose between using their savings for a dream wedding or a down payment on a house. I'm just like, and dude, I've seen a couple episodes and they're like going to these people and they're just like, oh, we really just don't know. Like, we're looking for venues and it's so hard and they're so expensive. Like, I mean, or there's this really nice house we can get, put a down payment, but like, if we get this wedding, and I'm like, if you don't take the down payment, why are you? They're like crying over it, like, oh my God, like this is all of our savings. And I'm just scratching my eyes out. Like, is this even a dilemma? Like, dude, low key, you should only have a wedding. I'm not gonna say a wedding. You should only have an expensive wedding if you're in abundance. But again, segue into my answer. Yeah, not having a wedding or having a very cheap wedding, And dude, the older I get and the more money savvy or just, they're kind of correlated. The older I get, the more I am looking into the intricacies of money and how I can grow my money, all that stuff. And it's like, I might not have a wedding, dude, or it might be real small. And I've grown up around definitely not lavish weddings, but like having a wedding, like it's a thing. I've my whole life intended to have a wedding. So this is very interesting. My girlfriend never thought about having a wedding. She wanted to get married, but never was pressed about having a wedding until meeting me. I have a big sense of community, family, like village, a lot of people that support me. I'm abundantly blessed in that regard. So like there is a lot of people I would want to have around me during that time. So we're complete opposites going in the opposite directions. She never wanted to have a wedding, my current girlfriend, and like kind of now likes the idea of having a wedding, whereas I always thought I'd have a wedding, and I'm kind of going in the direction like I could really not have a wedding. So it's super funny, and we've like thrown that idea around, and maybe we meet in the middle and have something small, like maybe, or however it manifests. But dude, to your point, so I don't like talk in circles. I am very much, dude, I might end up having a big wedding. It ain't gonna be 6 figures, but like I might end up having a big wedding. I don't know. But as it stands right now, and it won't be a sole decision, it'll be a partner decision. I would be very content having a small, if even a wedding, which is, I can't even believe I'm saying that because I've always thought that I was going to have like, a decent sized wedding. But I just know that I could make that money do so much if I saved it. And I feel like I would have the wedding to be a great day. I'd be super happy, just beautiful, go on the honeymoon. And then like a couple days after I get back, be laying in the bed, be like, damn, I could have been doing this with that money. I could have been doing that with that money, and just start dwelling on it. So,
You know what's
yeah,
crazy?
dude,
I didn't have a wedding, but the day I got married, I was also very happy. I was negative $20 vice. You know what I mean? And we still have a memory.
Great point. Yeah.
We still have the memory of like I remember like we went
For
together, like just us. Like I dressed up. I didn't have a top of the suit, just a white shirt and then black pants, nice shoes. She came in a dress. But like I didn't know that you had to have like witnesses, right? I was 26. I never been married. I had no idea. Like I didn't know they had to have 2 witnesses to do that like courthouse wedding. So we didn't have anyone.
I don't know. Yeah,
we literally grabbed 2 workers that was walking by the hallway. Like, hey, can you be our witness? And the first guy was like, sure. And like a second lady walked by like a few minutes later, like, hey, we just need another one for witness. I was just like, oh yeah, we can do it.
Wow.
And then, we had one guy take video on his stupid Android. I don't know why I didn't give him my phone. But yeah, like the point being, like, I also like, would I have had a better time? Maybe. I don't know. But I don't want, just to make a point, like spending more doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be happier. Like we still got married. Sure. I was very happy on that day. And I know this is kind of crazy. We didn't even go on a honeymoon, but,
I'm down now that, and that's, I'm at least going on a honeymoon.
I'm not against going on a honeymoon. I think that's cool. Yeah. But with our situation, I wasn't really crazy about a honeymoon. Then I took some time off. I was still in the Navy, so I literally got married and came back and went back to work. But yeah, just the marriage piece. I think I can't validate it until 20, 30 years later, but spending or just doing a courthouse wedding or having a small get together with your family and close friends I think is very underrated in 2025.
That's valid, dude. That's valid. And even thinking about this, and I like to be outside the box. I also like to save money. But again, going against the tradition, no, it doesn't have to be one venue. I'm even thinking like we could do something where, because again, I have a lot of people in my life that I know would want to rally around me, if not on the day, like soon after I get married or something. But like we take some days off, we get married, and we do like our own little tour. And I go to all the states of people that I have that I want to see, that me and her want to see. And like, it'd be the cost of like a couple plane tickets and maybe some lodging, vice thousands on a wedding. You know, like I go home to both our home states. We celebrate with family. I go to Arizona. We celebrate with you. I go to DC. We both have hella friends in DC. We turn up. We celebrate with them. One of my boys in Cali, you know, we go out there. And it's like we get to see different states. We get to travel. And that'd probably be $5K or less on the, you know what I mean? Just flying a bunch of places and seeing. And we could call it like a wedding tour. So, you know, I don't know. But I can see myself doing something like that where it'd be like, I know I kind of just came up with that and I'm low key might talk to her about that. It's kind of a fire idea.
Like that idea is actually pretty fire. I'm not going to lie. That would be pretty.
And it'd be
it's pretty like
so much less. And you'd be turn up with all your people, see all your people.
Yeah. And I think the
different
turn up
sides.
The celebration portion would be more intimate.
Yes.
Like, you know, if you have a wedding, like, you know, like
so many,
like I'm guessing I have a thought that I would be invited to your wedding, but then like I would want to hang out with you, but then like, at the same time I know
right.
You got to hang out with her family, you got to hang out with your family, you got like other buddies that you haven't seen in a while, like of course I'm gonna be there, but like that the wedding tour, honeymoon tour, dude, that's I never heard that ever.
Dude, I literally just thought of that. I might be onto something.
You should bring it up to your girlfriend.
But you're right. I 100% will, actually. So I should be down for that. But yeah, man, nonetheless, this is one of those things I strongly feel is super taboo and needs to not be. Not only needs to not be, it's foundational. I'm not gonna say change the trajectory of your marriage, but like, I don't know. I feel like it'd be very foundational in the marriage. And this doesn't come from me, just what I've heard about so many people talk to. And being that I'm not married, I ask very intentional questions to people in my life that are, because I try to learn from others' mistakes or just get like tips and tricks. And so I hear a lot of people that did premarital counseling and advocate for it or didn't and wish they did. So, you know, that's another little thing that I just take on. And I know within premarital counseling, finances is a big topic that's like pushed or talked about or advised on, you know, et cetera. So yeah, man. No, man. But I mean, I think I got off all my like major takeaways, you know, things I've heard, or at least wanted to ask you about this topic. Do you have any?
No, I think it was a good,
else?
I think it's just funny, just two guys talking about marriage, but you know, been there, done that. But this is part 2. So
these are the things I think needs to be talked about more, and it doesn't have to be this just two guys talking about it, man. It's awesome. But hopefully, in closing, nobody, you know, takes my wedding tour idea, because I'm really actually gonna like that might be a thing. So hey, if anybody ends up doing that, let me know. Let me know how that goes. But dude, it's so good to talk to you and pick your brain. I appreciate you, brother. And as always, thank you for anybody that joins, listening, watched. We appreciate it, and we'd love to further conversation. So feel free to comment, and also tune in next week with a fresh new topic. Later.